Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video looks at payday loans, cash advances, and also same-day loans. They're pretty much the same thing, they've just got different names, and we're not a fan of the whole set. So we don't like them because they charge very high interest rates, the fees are very high, and they're very predatory. And we find that the costs of taking out one of these payday loans, or whatever they're called, is incredibly expensive, and you're repaying it a lot more of course, than you borrowed, and often that leaves you exposed and needing to borrow more money later on, which is just a vicious cycle. So we know that the companies behind them get a lot of defaults, meaning people don't repay them. That's fine, and some of them go bust eventually, i.e. they run out of money completely, but we just don't want people to get them in the first place, and I just want to put some information sort of out there on a quick video, which I'm doing now, to help explain it. We've linked all these three resources down below. We've also got a guide to debt help, which I want to share with you, and it's definitely worth going through that because there's so many ways to not be in the situation where you need to rely on these loans, and it comes from just some basic steps that are very easy to implement. Now, without further ado, I'll go straight into it. So payday loans, and I'm saying payday loans, which are synonymous, as I said, with cash advances or same-day loans. We take the view that they're really the last resort, and we say that because they're the highest interest rate kind of product you can get on the official market. And if you need to get one, please make sure that you can repay it, because it's only one solution, a payday loan. There are others. And then if you are uncertain about whether or not you'll be able to repay in the 2 weeks or the 4 weeks that the repayment's sort of slated for, then you're going to be smashed with fees and penalties. That is absolutely certain. And despite some government changes, which has been helpful with regards to bringing down the overall cost that these lenders can charge, you can easily get a $500 loan or a $200 loan doubled, into a $1,000 nightmare, which means, can you actually repay it? And if you look at the interest rates, they're usually from about 0.25% to 0.8%. Sometimes you'll see providers offering 50%, 60% per annum. Still, that's like twice, 3 times what a credit card charges. But also there's fees on top of that as well. And that's what people don't often take account of. It's the fees and the administration costs, which really, really are quite destructive. There's no regulation around like payday lending collection. So we know that there's a lot of people out there being chased for payments or also offered new loans at some incentives. We're just not happy with that whatsoever. So what we've done is, like, if you are going to get one of these, and we really, as I said, don't want you to do that, the best step is to find the cheapest price and then avoid the brokers. So the best price is going to be, or the cheapest price is going to be looking at the lowest interest rate. The brokers are going to be the people who act like a middleman, just charge you a whole bunch of fees on top of it. We say to avoid those altogether. They're not offering any value. The only value would be if they tell you not to get one, and that would be helpful, but they probably won't. Many of them probably wouldn't, because of the fact that they are incentivized to provide payday loans and then check that the company that's operating is going to pay the money on the same day. That's often an issue, that, if they're going to give you a loan, how long is it going to come? How long is it going to take to actually get the money? Will you need to borrow even before you get that? I know that sounds insane or a bit crazy, but this is the problem. People who apply for payday loans, they're obviously desperate for money. That's fine, but we just want to make sure if they are going to apply and be accepted for a loan, that they get the money straight away. And then what information do you need? So you need to be at least 18 years old, that you need to have an after-tax income, usually of around $400 per week. And then you do need to be in permanent employment. People will say they lend to beneficiaries, but often they won't. People will say they lend to part-timers or retirees, but often they won't. So they're just not. They're not going to lend money to everyone because the risk of default, i.e. not being repaid, is so high. And then you also need a proof of address, a bank account, and mobile phone, and all of that things as well. And whilst we've said they do lend on a benefit, you will need to meet the minimum weekly income. But there's been such a cutback now that, while we've said okay, they'll include benefit considerations, the chances of being approved are quite low. And if it is too easy to get it, then that's a massive red flag. Right, we've listed, as we always do, the top rated ones. And by the top rated ones, I mean these are called the least worst. They're still very expensive. And we've seen here that, if you take out $500 for 4 weeks, you're going to have to pay back $186 and things like that. So we just want to make people aware that these are problems and they're very expensive to repay. And trying to get $700 after 4 weeks when you've already borrowed $500 is very, very tricky. Basically, we've got more guidance here, which I suggest having a read through. What happens if you can't repay? Usually they'll roll it over and you'll have to talk to them. You have to flag it as, I can't pay. You have to raise it as a problem, because otherwise you'll be hit with fees, penalties, and all sorts of hassle. And so they have to also assess it. If you have had an issue with hardship, then, they'll need to make that assessment and whether or not you can apply for you can apply for relief. And this could be a repayment holiday, interest caps, or whatever else. So just be aware that there are options. What we've said, that if you already have one of these payday loans, cash advances, same day loans, whatever, then you can repay it. I know it does seem quite tricky to think that, it's not a good situation. It's stressful. It's just a whole bunch of pressure, but you can repay it. So we suggest sometimes just using a credit card and taking out the money to be able to make the payment to clear the balance. It's going to be a lot cheaper than whatever it is, and then close down the account. It's really helpful to not have access to this sort of free flow of money from a payday lender, because they know how to lend it and you know how to pay it back, and it's a bad combination. And while it works well for the payday lender, it's very bad for you. Second to that, looking at increasing your credit card limit. Many people who have payday loans aren't financially destitute. They often have well-paying jobs. It's just, they've overcommitted themselves. So look at your credit card. Can you increase it? Because the debt on credit cards, while we're certainly not fans of that, is always going to be cheaper than, getting debt from, payday lender, or a same day lender or cash advance or whatever. Balance transfers, we just suggest having a read through our guide here. That's very popular to free up some debt and make it less expensive to repay the current debt that you have. You can consider it a personal loan, but once again, that would just be used to repay the debts, the high interest debts. That's not financial advice. That's just one consideration to make. And then looking at borrowing from family, but not your friends, still, that's a big problem sometimes, actually very often. So don't rush into that without being properly, familiar with what's going to happen, what the terms are that have been set. But there are always options, and you can also look at your overdraft. So we've talked about payday loans here. As I said, it's the same as the cash advances. It's the same as the same day loans. They're all, I'm going to say, fruits of the poisonous tree, quick access money at very high costs, and we don't like them at all. We're we're absolutely not happy with them. And we just wish that more people would, not take them. Fortunately, we've seen regulation, as I said, within New Zealand, but we know that people are advertising them, companies are advertising them quite heavily, and that there's still a market despite some of them going bankrupt. So with all that being said, if you do want some information about debt help, there's a link down below in the video description to how to repay debts and work with budget advisors who'll definitely take your case and try and make everything better for you. There's so much out there in the community willing to help people. The last people who are going to help you are going to be the providers of this high interest debt, this high interest credit. So we strongly suggest having a look at all the options and just staying well clear of payday loans. Never rush into them. Take a breath before you actually make a decision. Think about it. Look at the options and the alternatives and just make an informed decision. We don't want you to get out a $200 loan only to pay back $300. Later, you need another $200. You need to pay back another $300. It just goes on and on and on. It's really, really bad. It's very expensive, and you can just never get free of it. So what we're saying is just don't rush into these things and look at all the other options that you have, especially leverage, looking at credit cards that you already have that you can maximize or get cash out for, or looking at family, or looking at your overdraft before running down this very quick money, fast money, instant payment type of product, which we're just not fans of. If you have any questions, please let us know. We're very responsive in the comments, and if you can leave them down below, that's very helpful for us to improve our guides and improve our resources and our tools, and we really would value that. Best of luck with whatever you are looking for, but as I said, please stay away from these things as much as you can, because they're just a bad news story. Thank you.